Esther chapter 5, all of Esther chapter 5. Now, before we move into this chapter, we need to think back to what we covered last week. We remember that the decree has gone out. And in this decree that has gone out through the Babylonian Empire is the destruction for all the Jews, young and old, men, women, and children. All of them have been called to be annihilated on one single day. And why was this decree set into motion? Well, because Mordecai, the Jew, refused to bow before Haman. And we know who Haman is. He's this man who's been brought up in this powerful position. The king has elevated him above all the others. And the command went out when Haman was brought into this position that everyone must bow down to him. However, Mordecai, the Jewish man, would not bow. And it wasn't because it was anything personally directed towards him. The reason why Mordecai would not bow, it's tied to his allegiance to God. That's why he would not bow down to this man. And as soon as Haman heard about this, he was so angry. We know that Haman has an ego problem. He has a problem with this position because it has just created his ego to grow larger and larger. So when he found out that this Jewish man would not bow down to him, his anger wasn't just toward Mordecai. No. His anger is gone out to all the Jews. So he went before the king. And he doesn't tell the king who these people are. Remember how he set this up? Here Haman is, standing before the king, and he tells the king, these people, that they do not worship in the manner in which you worship. These people do not look to you as the other people look to you. He never told them that they were the Jewish people. But what does the king do? He hears King Haman. This is the very man that he has brought up. So he looks at Haman and he says, whatever you see that needs to be done, you have my blessing. I even give you my ring. Another way to show his authority. So Haman moves forward with this decree. And he puts it out on this certain day that all the Jews in the empire will be killed. So the decree goes out. And as the decree goes out throughout all the provinces, what do you think is going to happen? The people begin to hear this. The Jewish people begin to hear this. And it hits Mordecai. And man, when Mordecai hears that all the Jews are going to be annihilated, it crushes him. So what does he do? He strips off his clothes, puts on a sackcloth, and covers himself in ashes. And this begins to spread throughout all the provinces in the empire. And the Jewish people are doing the same thing. And it's then that Queen Esther, from the king's court, sees pretty much her father now. She sees Mordecai at the king's gate, sees him covered in sackcloth and in ashes, and then she's like, we got to get some clothes to this man because something's going on here. Now, we look back and we may even say, wait a minute, this is Queen Esther. How does she not know what the king is doing? Well, we can't think of marriage then as it is today. She hasn't seen the king in 30 days. She's only allowed to see the king when he calls for her. So she hasn't even heard about this decree. So she sends one of her eunuchs out to go and take the clothes to Mordecai. But he refuses the clothes. And then this kind of goes back and forth. And it's eventually Mordecai gets the decree, tells the eunuch about it, and the eunuch takes it back to Queen Esther. And it's then Queen Esther finds out that all the Jewish people are going to be annihilated because of Haman. And he's upset at Mordecai because Mordecai would not bow to him. But it's then that Mordecai, by way of the eunuch, he has a plan. And what he's going to ask Queen Esther to do is extremely difficult, and it very well could mean her death. He wants Esther to go before the king. Now, again, we may be thinking, okay, big deal. But remember, there is a law that the king has. If you have not been called, yet you present yourself before the king, he could put you to death. And Esther hasn't been called in over 30 days. So she gets word from Mordecai, the Jewish people are going to be killed, and she accepts this role which has been given to her to go before the king and say, please, do not let this happen. This isn't an easy ask. Not at all. And that's where we end up going into chapter 5. Here we have the queen saying, as she's walking towards the king, going to present herself without being called. And she even said last week, if I perish, I perish. So this decree still stands. The risk is still real. And here Esther is prepared to act on behalf of her people. Here we go. Let's look at verses 1 through 3. You should be able to feel the tension. All right, even as Esther is getting prepared to stand before the king. On the third day, Esther put on her royal robe. Now, the third day makes a difference because remember what Esther asked Mordecai and the Jewish people to do for 3 days. Will you please pray and fast over this? Because she's not sure of the outcome. She doesn't know if the king's going to look at her and be like, you present yourself to me? I didn't call you. So after 3 days, prayer and fasting, she puts on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace. So already this is against what the king allows. Here she is in front of the king's quarters. While the king was sitting on his royal throne inside the throne room opposite the entrance to the palace. So what do you think happens? The king makes eye contact with Esther. Why? Well, nobody's supposed to be there. He hasn't called for anyone. And when the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, what happens? These words should sound familiar to us because we've seen it happen time and time again. How does it happen time and time again? Is it because there's something about Esther? No, there's something about our sovereign Lord and what he's doing with Esther. She won favor in his sight. And he held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. Then Esther approached, touched the tip of the scepter, and the king said to her, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? It shall be given you, even to the half of my kingdom." You know, for Esther, and I'm not sure how great deodorant worked back then, but there had to be pit stains taking place as she is making her way, right? Standing before the king, not knowing what's going to happen, and then he holds out the scepter. That sigh of relief had to just pour out of her. I mean, she was waiting outside, waiting for him. And here he is on the inside with his ultimate so-called authority, at least so he thought. But even in this moment, oh church, even in this moment, from a human perspective, we can say, wow, the king chose to allow her to come into the palace. But from God's perspective, he directed the king to allow her to come into the palace. That's what happened. So Esther does not approach on her terms. She is only received through the authority of God that brought her in the presence of the king. Now, the king doesn't see it that way at all, but that's what's happening. So what we're seeing is what could have ended in her death instead opens the way for her to live and approach the king. comes in, touches the scepter, and you just see the king gushing over her. So here the opportunity is. And what is she going to do with this opportunity? Let's look at verse 4. And Esther said, "If it please the king, let the king and Haman come today to a feast that I have prepared for the king." Now, what does Esther know? Esther knows Haman's plan. Esther knows that Haman wants to wipe out her bloodline. So what does she do? Well, let's invite him to the feast. What does the king say? Absolutely. Bring Haman quickly. Now, the king has no idea what is going on. Bring Haman quickly so that we may do as Esther has asked. So the king and Haman came to the feast that Esther had prepared. It's interesting that this opportunity that's been given to her, and from our viewpoint, it's almost as if Esther, just tell him, right? Tell him the reason why you're there. Haman wants to kill us all, do away with him. But that's not in the order in which God is working. It's not time for that to happen. Instead, she invites the king and Haman to a banquet. And I think we can all agree, well, this isn't expected, right? We didn't see this coming. So here she has come with this great risk, presenting herself. Now access has been given to the king, and it's almost as if she throws this curveball. It's like, The king responds to it. Bring Haman in, and we're going to do as Esther has asked, right? So she's been received, she's been heard, and then now, instead of actually, from our perspective, just resolve the matter, she sets the stage for what is to come. Look at verse 6. So you can picture them. Here's Queen Esther with the king, who she hasn't seen within 30 days, and just a few moments earlier, this could be the very man that is going to put her to death. But that didn't happen, right? Now she is sitting also with Haman, who has put out a decree to put them all to death on a certain day, and this is who she is breaking bread with. Do you think that's easy? How do you manage that? Well, they were drinking some wine after the feast, so that would help. And the king said to Esther, again, "What is your wish? It shall be granted you. And what is your request?" So this is the second time. "Even to the half of my kingdom it shall be fulfilled." Then Esther answered, "My wish and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my wish and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come to the feast that I will prepare for them. And tomorrow I will do as the king has said." So after this banquet, after they've consumed the food, after they have sipped the wine, the question's asked, and this is how she responds. So she's going to invite the king and Haman to come again. And it says after that, "Then I will answer." So it's delayed yet again. And for us sitting in here, I don't know how many of you all have read ahead, but spoiler alert, all right? If you don't know what's going to happen, just cover your ears. No, don't do that. It's the Bible, right? There's a reason why all of this is taking place. Because we know by the end of what we're going to be covering tonight, gallows is going to be built to hang someone. So even though we're not told what Esther's plan is, we're seeing the sovereign Lord work. The very way in which the Lord is going to eliminate Haman is going to be by his very own hands in this gallows being built. Now, do we see why there is another banquet that gives the men enough time to build the gallows, which is supposed to be, they're thinking, for Mordecai. But we're seeing God working this out every step of the way. And again, we're not told how much she's aware of. But with every request that she makes, God brings the king and Haman to fulfill that request. And it almost seems as if there's like this delay taking place, but there's not. It's God working through man, and literally these men who are going to be building this gallows, working through them to bring about what he has decreed. That's amazing, is it not? Maybe not to y'all, but it is to me. So look at verse 9 here. And Haman went out that day joyful and glad of heart. I mean, he is just all proud of himself, is he not? This man who has this massive ego has not only dined with the king, but the queen has invited him not once, but twice. So he has all this authority. The king and queen love him. He's good. But Haman saw Mordecai at the king's gate, that he neither rose nor trembled before him. He was filled with wrath against Mordecai. Okay, here's another part, and I love this. In God's decree, Haman was going to leave that feast at a certain point in time, and is going to see Mordecai. So he's placed Mordecai right there at the gate at this certain time. Haman locks eyes with Mordecai. Everybody else is bowing before him. So all those people were placed at that gate for that very moment as well. They're all bowing before him, trembling before him. And then we have Mordecai. I don't know what Mordecai was doing at the time, but you could just see him just standing there, right? Not bowing, not trembling. I know who you are. I know who you are. Just standing there. And Mr. Ego, I mean, it just enrages him. Nevertheless, Haman restrained himself and went home. And he sent and brought his friends and his wife Zeresh. Now, why does he do this? Well, this man likes to be acknowledged. This man likes to be worshiped. And I guarantee you, don't know this, so I'm speculating here and I need to be careful with this, but this man loves to have yes men around him. So he wants to hear what he wants to hear. So he calls for his little yes friends to come and his wife Zeresh. He gathers them around him. And what does he do first? Let me brag on myself just a moment. Just a moment. Let me just talk about myself. I'm talking about Haman, not really me. But look at verse 11. And Haman, with his friends and wife there, recounted to them the splendor of his riches, the number of his sons, all the promotions with which the king had honored him, and how he had advanced him above the officials and the servants of the king. Look at how great I am. Can I tell you guys something? If you have been blessed by the Lord, understand that you have been blessed by the Lord, and it is not your own doing to boast in and of yourself. Just shut up. I'm serious. I'm so grateful for you if God has been gracious and merciful to you. But man, it's not about you. Just shut up. Especially, believers. You should understand where every gift has come from. If you want to brag about yourself to me, and I'm not trying, well, maybe I'm trying to be mean. I don't want to hear it. I don't. Now, if you want to brag on the Lord and what He has done for you, and it better be a legitimate brag upon the Lord and not this humble brag, still saying, look at how great I am. The Lord loves me so much over everyone else. I have all this. Shh. I don't want to hear that either. We should be the most humble people in the room. Why? Because we understand that we are broken sinners who do not deserve any of this. We don't even deserve the next breath in which we are about to be given by the Lord. Do you understand that? And here we have this pagan who has been given this attitude by way of the Lord to boast in and of himself. He's been surrounded by these yes men, again by God's decree. Just bragging on himself. So really, from Haman's perspective, everything is going as it should. I have this authority. I've been invited to these 2 banquets, sitting with some of the most powerful people in the world. I'm wealthy. I have authority. I have been blessed with many of sons. I'm so great, it's hard to even look at the mirror at myself. But because of this arrogance, he is crushed by one man who will not bow to him. I mean, you think about everything that he has. He's just laid it out there. But there's this one guy that won't bow down to me. So there it is. You would think at some point that this would be enough. But a man who idolizes himself never has enough. His position cannot secure him. His honor cannot settle him. Because what he is seeking is almighty authority. And can I tell you something, old man? You will never, ever have that. Because you're not sovereign. Now, you are a worm. Look at verse 12. Then Haman said, again, here he is, still bragging to the people around him, even Queen Esther, let no one but this guy come with the king and the feast that she prepared. And even tomorrow, you guys hearing me? Even tomorrow, I get to go back and do this again. I'm invited by her together with the king. And then here it comes. Yet all of this is nothing to me so long as I see Mordecai, the Jew, sitting at the king's gate. So this man has access, has honor, has recognition. It's all been given to him. And yet he says it plainly. None of this satisfies him. As long as that man does not bow, this counts for nothing. And this is not an exaggeration in his mind. This is how he views himself. Everyone should bow. He must be acknowledged. And until that happens, nothing will ever be enough. Look at verse 14. So after Haman finally shuts his mouth and how great he is, how blessed he is, how powerful he is, yet there's this one man that he cannot tolerate. Then his wife Zeresh and all of his friends said to him, they're all clamoring, oh, we got an idea. This is going to make you happy because it's all about you. Let a gallows 50 cubits high be made, and in the morning tell the king to have Mordecai hanged upon it. Okay, so this gallows is going to be made throughout the night. This is the torture device that is being made for Mordecai. Now go back and think about what the queen has done. Even though she's not aware of how the Lord is working. But she has this idea, look, I want to have one banquet, okay? So they had the one banquet, which is beautiful because very well could be, maybe if there wasn't the first banquet, maybe if Haman would have left before then, he would never have witnessed Mordecai sitting here. So you're seeing the way in which God is working. Banquet, people are gathering at the gate. Mordecai is going to be sitting at the gate, all in God's timeline. So before the banquet's over, Esther says, let's have another one tomorrow. You come back tomorrow. Okay, sounds great. So he's going back tomorrow, but as he gets home, after he saw, Mordecai still not acknowledging him, he gets home, he's with all of his friends, he's like, there's going to be another banquet tomorrow. I'm telling you all this. So here you see God working within the friends. Will you build the gallows tonight so that you can kill him before the banquet tomorrow? Do you see how God is working all of this out? It is absolutely amazing when you see it unfold. They're simply saying, remove the one man who unsettles you. Build the gallows tonight. Man, so everything has been set into place. I'm sure even that night, Haman slept like a champ, knowing that tomorrow this enemy that he has is going to be wiped off the face of the earth. And yet he doesn't see how the sovereign Lord is working all of this out as he has decreed, not through the choices that they were making. No. All this is worked out before the foundation of the world. This was how this is going to play out. Man. Maybe I get a little bit too excited on this story. I'm not sure, but so this is where we're going to end, okay? So what we're left with at the end of this chapter is a moment that has been opened but not yet acted on. Esther, man, she's been received. She's been given access to the king. And yet she still hasn't spoken up about what Mordecai has asked her to bring up to the king. The opportunity has been there, but it's been held back. And at the same time, our humble boy Haman is not slowing down at all. I mean, breakneck speed, moving forward. He wants Mordecai dead. He wants these gallows built overnight. So we're seeing this tension increase. Threats become more defined. And it looks like, I know I gave it away, but it looks like within a few hours, Mordecai is going to be put to death. And yet, all of this is in God's control. God is not reacting to what is happening. He is ordering it. And this is what this points toward, all right? Because the deliverance that is needed here does not rest just in this moment. Right? It doesn't, because we're seeing Mordecai, he's a foreshadowing of Christ, the one who is standing up for his people. Even Esther is a foreshadowing of Christ. She's the one that went before the king. Although she was not killed, she was willing to die before the people. For the people, I should say. Not before them, but for them. Yet, the perfect one has still not yet stepped foot on the scene. He's coming. He's been promised. And you're seeing that foreshadowing all the way throughout the Old Testament. And we'll stop there. All right. Any questions or comments?